And welcome to, thank you. And welcome to the September 26, 2022.
I don't think the mic is
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
There we go. Excuse me, welcome to the regular Town Council meeting of the City of Weaverville on Monday, September 26, 2022. That seems too loud to me, but. Council members, you've all had an opportunity to review the agenda packet. Are there any adjustments to be made?
What I'm debating is asking if you would pull off the consent agenda item D, because I must have missed that meeting and would like to know more about item D.
Item D, the sum of judicial action. Is there anyone have an attitude about that or anything to say about that? Okay, so we're going to remove item D from the consent agenda. Are there any other adjustments? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item D on the consent agenda?
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good deal.
Thank you, Mayor.
Town Manager Coffey, would you please go through the agenda item, or the consent agenda, excuse me.
Yes, sir. Good evening. The consent agenda begins on page 3 with the August 22nd minutes for your review and approval. On page 6, you'll find the monthly tax report. This is beginning of the tax year, so we're at 9.78% there. That's your several pages there. And then on page 11, you have a budget amendment. One is for $11,642.70. This is for law enforcement. And then another $16,299.78, and this is for alcohol education. These are reappropriations from the ABC distributions. I believe on page 13 has been pulled, so I will pass that one. We'll go to page 15. And you have a request for town council to set a public hearing for October 24th at 6 p.m. here at Town Hall in order to receive public comment on proposed text amendments to Chapter 20 related to retail uses in the C1 zoning district. And page 18, you have the comprehensive plan, public hearing, setting a public hearing on it. Of course, for some text amendments to the comprehensive plan. We ask that you hold that public hearing or set that public hearing for October 24th at 6 p.m. Again, here in council chambers at Town Hall. On page 27, you have the lower half of page 27, you have a number of appointments. Would you like for me to go through those individually, Mr. Mayor?
That's probably a good idea.
Okay. We're asking for approval of the following board appointments or reappointments. Bob Pace and Rachel Bronson for reappointment as regular members of the planning board to serve new 3-year terms beginning September of 2022. Donna Manbelt, appointment as regular meeting of the planning board to serve an unexpired term that is due to expire in September 2023. Maggie Schroeder, reappointment as an alternate member of the planning board to serve a new 3-year term beginning September 2022. Paul Claus, reappointment as regular member of the Board of Adjustment to serve a new 3-year term beginning September 2022. Thomas Testina, appointment to the ABC Board to serve a new 3-year term beginning September 2022. And Rob Chasen, designation as ABC Board Chair for a 1-year term beginning September 2022. The final item on consent for you, and I would like to distribute this to you because there's a correction that needs to be made. Here's my question, I'm sorry. So this item, as you all know, we did not receive the initial drinking water state revolving fund grant application that we submitted for. We did go back and make some revisions to that grant application. And so you'll see, primarily in that third whereas, is really the focus here of the adjustments that we made to resubmit in order to get more points for the program. Again, we're still asking for the installation of 2 new generators at the water treatment plant, backwash pumps, a new high service pump station, a new liquid chlorine gas for the treatment plant, and that's the conversion process that we've been talking about. And then the second whereas is the same that was in the prior one. So what you see, the difference, the correction that you see on page 32 of your agenda. If you look at that first whereas, it says installing a new generator. If you look at the one that we just handed out, it's 2 new generators, so it's a correction there. And this is simply asking that you take action to adopt this resolution. This resolution is part of the process that we have to submit in order to submit for this grant application renewal.
Do you know when they'll tell us if we get it or don't get it?
I think we heard February.
Okay, so if we don't get it, there's still time to do other things.
That's
Funding
correct.
this.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Town Manager. Are there any questions or comments about the consent agenda? Any discussion? If not, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The consent agenda is approved. I just want to point out too that at our last meeting, we showed you a form that we're using to track the progress being made on our water resolution we passed in June. And it's not on the agenda tonight because there isn't a lot of progress to report. There's a lot of progress being made, but there was no substantial changes or to be announced. But we anticipate in October, we'll have a lot of new stuff to tell you. So the good news is things are happening, but things have not been completed. Next up is the town manager coffee again with the town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a very brief report to you, and I'm going to start it off with really good news, and that is we have with us Grace, who's behind me. She asked me if there was anything special that she needed to do, and I came up with a list, but she almost walked out the door when I said it. So I want to introduce Grace to you. You approved her position to do a combination of clerk duties as well as some communication duties, and so we hired her. She started today. What a way to start a day with a board meeting or a town council meeting. But she has been very busy working with all of us to get up to speed, and we'll be working with her for several days. She has some really great ideas about social media and how we use technology to our benefit. So we look forward to having her. Welcome, Grace.
Welcome, Grace. We're glad to have you on the team.
Also, just to report to you, I think probably everyone knows at this point, we have hired a new fire chief. Scotty Harris comes to us formally currently from Northern Wake County Fire Department, but prior to that, he was with Black Mountain Fire Department. He will be with us beginning on October 10. And we'll have some kind of opportunity for you all to meet him as well as we get into October. October's workshop, the plan had originally been that the bike ped plan was going to be scheduled for September, but because of some issues that the folks at Traffic Planning Design were having with getting some information together, that was rescheduled for the October 18th workshop, so they will be presenting that plan at that point in time. The next one, Fountain at Lake Louise, I had a lot to report there. That was my biggest part of my report. But in the meantime, Dale and his folks got it fixed. So the fountain was Amazing what people are
It is.
pleased with.
I've got many questions about the fountain. The fountain is very popular.
The fountain is very popular, in there, I've heard a couple of folks ask the question of why it was turned off. Well, it wasn't turned off, it was a matter of parts breaking, and when parts break these days, in the days we're living, you don't get them as quick and easily as we did pre-COVID times, so, we did finally get the parts and get the correct parts, in place, and so thank you to Dale and his folks for making sure that got, taken care of real quickly. Just a reminder that the I-26 bridge replacement is coming up soon. That will begin in October, and as a reminder, that will impact Quarry Road. I know that some folks do tend to walk down toward Quarry Road. Certainly want to encourage folks to not walk down Quarry Road at this point in time. It's not a safe place to travel, given that not only do we have our large trucks, garbage trucks, brush trucks, police vehicles, but also we will have NCDOT vehicles traveling that road. So we want to discourage that from folks, for folks that may walk that way. And then finally, some information that you approved, about the new toters you approved in the budget this year, some information about those toters. This information will also be going out in the e-focus as well as with our billing. And so to get the word out, essentially folks who have not purchased a toter, a garbage toter that has the side pickup handle, arm, I'm sure there's a more technical term for that. But this is for basically workplace safety and to make sure that our guys are not lifting these huge toters that have all kinds of materials in them. And so basically the toters are $55. Those will be added, that will be added to the water bill for those folks that do not currently have one. A lot of folks already have these toters and have been using them for several years now. But we also can work out a monthly payment plans, and so encourage folks just to give us a call here at Town Hall, and we work with them on the payment plan for that. That's all I have for my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you much. Anybody have questions for the town manager and her report? If not, we'll go on to our next section, which are general public comments. And let me read this long message I read every month about general comments. Town Council appreciates the opportunity to hear from its residents, and a part of each of its regular meetings is reserved for that purpose. General public comments may be submitted during the meeting or in writing in advance on any meeting topic or any other item of interest. Normal rules of decorum apply to all comments, and duplicate comments are discouraged. Actions and behavior can be questioned, but personal attacks will not be tolerated. This is a time for Town Council to listen, and Town Council and staff may not necessarily offer any response during this time. The general public comments section of the meeting will be limited to 20 minutes and prior to be given to those commenters in attendance and our residents of the town. Comments during the meeting are generally limited to 3 minutes per person. The town manager keeps time with that large clock she's got over there. And if your 3 minutes are up, I'm not going to cut you off mid-sentence, but I'm going to make a motion to ask you to wrap up your comments. If you wish to speak, you must identify yourself by name and state your street address. You must be recognized before giving your comment, and you must come to the podium to speak so that everyone can hear you. Written comments timely received before the meeting will be provided to Town Council, and there were some this month, by the way, we did receive those. Included as part of the minutes of the meeting and read into the record during the 20-minute public comment period as time allows. If you want more information on how to submit comments, please contact Town Hall. Thank you. The first person is Jennifer Young.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Young. I'm a resident of 54 South Main Street, and I'm a native to Weaverville, grew up here, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak to the council tonight. I'm coming in regards to the requested water allocation request from that LDG multifamily group. As a landlord, most of my properties are considered to be low-income housing. I don't charge a lot for my rent there, and it's very affordable for the residents who live there, so I'm not opposed to affordable housing. What I am opposed to is to the location of this proposal. The location on this is gonna be on Monticello Road, which is already very, very congested. And, the addition of 168 units on this piece of property is just gonna be, extravagantly increasing the traffic problems that we already have there. Also, this project does not, reflect the needs that were outlined in our 2020 census report, saying that the poorest folks that live in our town are widowed seniors. So I don't think that this is adequately considering those needs of our current residents. Also, this project backs up to a very well-established housing development of West Rolling Acres, or West and East Rolling Acres. It's been there for quite some time. Most of the citizens and residents who live there are older adults who worked their whole life to get their house paid for and enjoy living there. But there's only a 20-foot buffer between where this is going to be built and their homes. And so that's also a concern of mine of how this is going to negatively impact those residents. The population density there of 168 units is twice what our, I guess our regulations are for projects in the town limits. I know this is out of town, so there's different rules apply, but it is going to be a very densely populated piece of property there. I'm concerned about the water. I would like to know where we stand with the water expansion and the other requests going on with that. Also concerned about the increase in crime that has historically followed some of these low-income housing developments that's come into our area. Specifically with theft and drug-related crimes, I think Mr. Beasley's going to be speaking on that. These folks will not be paying taxes to the town. There's no tax benefit at all for these citizens to come and live and enjoy what we have to offer here. But it is going to increase the burden that our citizens are going to have on their taxes to supply additional police officers and the other things that may be needed for them to safely live there, such as sidewalks or traffic signals so they can safely egress from their property over to Walmart. So I'm just concerned about all of that. And Mr. Jackson, I respectfully request that you recuse yourself tonight as your son-in-law, I believe Mr. Sowers, and I would appreciate if you recuse yourself from this vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Veazey?
Town Council, Mayor, thank you for being here tonight, for all your hard work and input. I just want to say thank you for the effort getting the fountain back up. Yes, it's very beautiful, but let's remember the big thing that it does, it aerates water, keeps it fresh and oxygenated. So the algae and stuff doesn't grow and maintain and start stinking. So we really appreciate you doing that. But in conjunction with what John just said, I have the same feelings about that. I also want to remind you that, we got R1 neighbors who live in the county. We, as the town of Weaverville, have protected our R1 residents here by the Doug Thoreau, and I believe Catherine Cordell was on that board of the zoning and everything, all that big comprehensive plan that they came up with to keep from happening what happened at Lake Louise, when the citizens had to raise $20,000 to pay for a lawyer to fight it at the zoning board, which we won. But I believe Mr. Kenneth's wife was also in support of our action. She made a big speech here that night about areas in Weaverville that could end up being the same thing and happening to it. And it felt like because of her input and speech to keep it from out of her neighborhood, the zoning board came up with this comprehensive plan. I feel like you just flushed that all down the toilet if you approve that out there. Now, if it's going to be built, no matter what, come hell or high water, because the county's land, then they should annex in due to the fact that they're using our water, but also it gives us the opportunity to expand with connecting land around that is not in the city, in case those people want to also annex, get our city water and use it. We have the ability to annex it them in. Because if we can't connect to them, then we can't annex them in. So it'll be like a little roadblock there. So I'm just saying, if that has to be happening, I say that should be done. The other thing I want to say is that crime. Asheville's crime rate has rose 197%, is 197% higher than the national average. Violent crime in Asheville is 109 higher than the national average. In Asheville, 1 out of 6 chances of becoming a crime victim, you have a chance of becoming a crime victim 1 out of 16. Asheville is safer than, now listen to the way I support it, and then I'll show you a picture. Asheville is safer than 3% of the cities in the United States. That graph is this right here. If you notice at the top, it says higher is better. So 3% of the United States, that means we're only 3% better. Asheville is better than the worst cities in the United States. 9%, they're only 9% higher than the worst cities in Asheville and West Carolina. So thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you, Thomas.
And I hope you vote against it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Jonathan Grant? No? Okay. Tasha Vandermeer? Tasha Vandermeer? Excuse me, is Tasha Vandermeer here?
She's coming.
Oh.
Walking up the center of the aisle.
Sorry.
Sorry. I'm not much of a speaker in public, so I apologize. I grew up in Weaverville as a child before I was put in foster care. When I aged out of 18, I ended up being homeless and living in a project low-income housing. Was really scary. It was one of the hardest times of my life living here. The violence, the drugs, the approach for prostitution, the theater every night. I ended up leaving and being homeless for 2 years. It was safe on the streets than here. My guess is that I think you guys need to go and drive in some of these low-income housings during the day and at night. Really see what it's like to live there before you bring that here. I saved up everything I own in a home next to my mom. When I aged 20, I met a family that took me in and taught me about life. Taught me about that I was smart enough to go to school, taught me about budgeting, things that I didn't get in foster care. They live at Rolling Acres. That's my mom and my sister. And I fear for them, and I fear for my family's neighbors as well. Bringing this in would be something that you can't take back, something that you have no idea. I see all of you, I'm gonna assume, lived in a loving home. I had a home at night where you didn't have to worry about any issues. I didn't have that. So I know what that's like to live in a home where you don't have that and when you do. So bringing that here could potentially put all the residents in Weaverville in danger because of the crime. I'm not saying everyone that lives in low-income housing are bad apples. I'm not saying that, because some of them really are needing the help. But you have some of those bad apples that are going to take advantage of it. Living in Weaverville, I sleep really safe. If I forget to lock my door, I know the police are right here and they can be here within minutes to my home. If that happens, what's going to happen? The police are going to be so busy over there that they're not going to be able to protect everyone else that's worked so hard to live here in a safe neighborhood. So I'm asking you, please say no to this. And if before you vote, postpone that and go look for yourselves. See what it's like day and night, because it's completely different. Is that what you really want to bring to Weaverville? Is that your legacy? Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Devine?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I live at Sage Drive, Weaverville, and I have some questions pertaining to specifically water regarding the Monticello project. I'll be handing these questions over to you. I'll just say them as comments firstly. So my understanding is that the Ivy River has a maximum capacity of 4 million gallons a day to supply Weaverville and other communities. What is the current level of water being supplied at this time? That's the first question. 2, as far as I know, the Weaverville water treatment plant has a maximum capacity of 1.5 million gallons a day. What is the current production? And it's my understanding that when water demand reaches 80% of capacity, the plant must be expanded. The expansion will not be paid by direct tax from residences, but from government funding. And thirdly, has there been a study done by the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality on the impact of this project? Then I have a few comments regarding the Haywood Street low-income housing project and the Monticello project, and these are the differences. So the Haywood Street project, HSD, is a 46-unit complex. Monticello will have 168 units, which seems to suggest quality over quantity as far as HSD versus Monticello. 168 units will be difficult, if not impossible, to maintain quality, control, and safety for all residents. Secondly, HSD is located downtown with access to bus, walking distance to medical and safety net providers, and all other health and city transport. Monticello, as far as I'm aware, has none of this accessibility. Thirdly, HSD will have a 5,500 square foot community room on the ground floor for on-site services, including a pantry by Manor Food Bank, community nursing by Givens Estates, etc., etc. We do not see Monticello offering any of that. HSD knows the isolation of poverty doesn't end with a set of house keys, so a director of community will be hired to nurture life after moving day. They will visit residents, share meals, and when necessary, they will interrupt resident estrangement through relationship. Again, as far as I'm aware, Monticello will not have this. HSD is on city land, so water will be provided, as far as I'm aware, by the city of Asheville. Monticello will use over 56,000 gallons of water a day, which will further tax an already vulnerable water supply system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Frank, do you have a last name from Frank from Sage Drive? Okay, then how did he sign in?
Somebody signed in for him.
Eileen Reichman.
Eileen Reeman.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I have a hard name to get wrong. 5 East Rolling Acres. Good evening. I want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to consider all the factors that are involved in this vote on the Monticello property. I've emailed you, many of you have replied. I really appreciate that because when I spoke at the last meeting, I felt like this was already a done deal, which is highly upsetting. I'm requesting a no vote for the potential residents of this project and for us neighbors and for Weaverville. You have already heard all the reasons, especially about congestion, traffic, noise, pollution, and problems having in such a high density living space. I've heard some reasons directly and indirectly from the board on why you might say yes. Please do not vote yes just to check a box for affordable housing that will not serve the people in need nor the rest of the community. They would be dealing with all the negative issues like everyone else and will not benefit from high density living based on the articles you've received from myself and my neighbors that discuss safety and crime issues that come with this type of housing, and have heard about comments of people who live in similar places. Please do not vote yes just because Buncombe County has pledged $1.5 million. There is a more appropriate place and density for this type of project. Please do not let a company that is making money based on the highest density possible sway your decision. You board members have approved other affordable housing projects that are at a much better density and location. I've also heard from board members that this area is going to be developed anyway. Be a good neighbor and do this responsibly. You know this area is overdeveloped already. In fact, you only recently approved the zoning behind CVS at the same congested area at a lower density than they requested for a reason. Please vote no and let the county find a more appropriate location for such high density project, or perhaps build a lower density project that will help address those in need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Kendall?
Good evening, council. My name is Mark Kendall. I currently live at 311 Herring Point Lane, and I've lived in Western North Carolina for over 20 years. I am here today to support the Monticello Road Affordable Housing Project, which I believe will benefit our residents, local businesses, and the town of Weaverville. As many of you know, our town and surrounding area is becoming quickly unaffordable for many individuals. Using data I've compiled from the U.S. Census Bureau, I found trends supporting this statement. The average rent cost in Weaverville is between $1,500 and $1,700 a month, or $18,000 to over $20,000 per year. Looking online, the newer Hawthorne at Weaverville and Holston, that's the starting range, around $1,500. So how does that affect our residents' community? Well, according to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, a cost burden occurs when a household spends over 30% or more of its income on housing costs, including rent and utilities. So using this as a guide, an individual or family would have to make over $60,000 a year to comfortably afford one of these apartments. As of 2020, over 75% of current renting households in Weaverville make less than $50,000 a year, with the average household income for renters coming to $46,000 a year, which is a far cry from the previously mentioned $60,000 a year. As a result, longtime residents choose either to move out of the area or face a cost-burden lifestyle, a lifestyle I have personally experienced before, one that sometimes includes deciding whether to pay rent or purchase groceries. This lack of affordable housing also affects our local businesses, as employers struggle to hire due to an ever-shrinking available talent pool. When you drive down Weaver Boulevard, how many places do you see hiring? Pretty much every location. Unfortunately, due to displacement, most places have difficulty finding employees that are willing to take the wages that businesses are willing to afford. Face it, those willing to commute to make $16 or even $20 an hour when similar paying jobs are available in places where more affordable rent is available. Luckily, you, the town council members, have an opportunity to promote community and business sustainability by voting in favor of Monticello Road Affordable Housing Project. I believe our town has a rare opportunity to be a leader in affordable housing by building one of the first apartment complexes of its kind in our region. This is not your traditional public housing or affordable housing that you think of. It blends the stigma and crime-reducing aspects of a mixed income housing with various programs that provide social support to residents and promote community partnership. This model is similar to a purpose-built community model, which has been incredibly successful in other parts of the country. So why can it not also work here in Weaverville? Now I understand the expressed concern of many individuals regarding water consumption and increased traffic. However, I believe that affordable housing, not just housing, is a right and not a privilege. So before casting a vote, please consider the countless individuals you may know who may benefit from this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam Retzloff?
I'm Roth, and I live at 12 East Rolling Acres. High-density housing isn't good for low-income people, and it is very risky to Weaverville as well. There is evidence, the evidence that we see on the news, but also a study out of University of Indiana, Purdue, from an urban land use expert and a criminologist. They were able to divide the entire city of Indianapolis into 1,000 by 1,000 foot squares and study the relationship between violent crime and land use. Their findings, quote, "There seems to be something about high-density residential that is associated with all types of violent crime." Their words. This held true when they controlled for population. This held true when the area they looked at was disadvantaged and when it was not. Another finding, the worst case scenario that they found for serious violent crime was when high density residential was located next to a commercial area traversed by busy streets. This is the exact land use scenario we have with the Walmart complex, Monticello, and Weaver Boulevard. You should be concerned about this. High-density housing isn't good for low-income people either. You heard Latasha's story. I've been up close with several low-income people who needed to find affordable housing. All of them regarded high-density housing as scary and dangerous for good reason. For example, I saw a mother with 2 young children move into a high-density apartment because it was the only housing available. After 2 days, she left, even though she was still obligated to pay the remaining rent. Why? Because there was a shooting in her complex, and so she chose to live in emotionally awful circumstances to preserve the physical safety of her family. There are other stories like this. Tonight, you have the opportunity to consider 2 proposals for affordable housing. And these proposals represent the very best and the very worst ideas for how to address this problem. The Mountain Housing Opportunities Project gives residents dignity, hope for the future, and an investment in the well-being of their community. The LDG project is the opposite.
Okay.
Please stand for the residents that will live in affordable housing and the people who live here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So I believe we're over our 20 minutes, but there's only 2 speakers left, so we'll go ahead and go with them. Corinne Hedberg.
Good evening. I'm Clara Hedberg. I'm a resident at 1 West Rolling Acres. You may know, council members, that I submitted a statement earlier today to the public comment email on behalf of 13 additional Rolling Acres residents. And I won't repeat a lot of that because a lot of that has been beautifully said tonight. What I do ask you to consider is what I said in my conclusion, which I'll read to you now. Rolling Acres residents question the continued actions of the town of Weaverville in improving dense housing capacity and large commercial development at the edges of town limits, not within town limits, to the detriment of neighboring established non-dense, semi-rural housing developments, and likely to the detriment of the town itself. These were concerns raised by Rolling Acres residents and others with the town prior to the approval of the Northridge Commons shopping complex, which I think predates most of you.
I don't know what that is, so.
It's my electric personality.
That's it. There you go.
Residents, which was approved anyway, the town in its own documents and publicity repeatedly praises actions that preserve the small town atmosphere of the town for its residents. Broadly speaking, Rolling Acres residents consider themselves Weaverville residents, even though we are not within the town limits. We live here, we shop here, We send our children to school here, and we either work here or we commute from here. Rolling Acres residents therefore ask the town to reconsider the LDG proposal in the context of the quality of life for its residents and their neighbors in North Buncombe. What does the town gain? What does the town and its residents gain from high-density development? Can the town and the county provide adequate services for rapid development in the North Buncombe area? What criteria does the town employ to measure small town quality of life? How does the town view its relationship with its neighbors? Does the town council engage with Buncombe County public officials to plan development where their jurisdictions meet? In light of the facts presented herein, Rolling Acres residents ask and that's in my statement, we ask the Weaverville Town Council to stop this project and any further dense housing development until further studies and discussions can take place. And that's around the values, the quality of life, traffic, congestion, all of the above, and water, of course. We further ask the town to engage with its neighbors in land use decisions which directly affect them. I'm almost done. And we further ask the town to engage with Buncombe County officials so that cooperative decisions can be made around development that affects their citizens in both. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lou Iconero?
Good evening, Lou Iconero, Fulton Harry, Weaverville. I've been in the leasing business for about 57 years. I had one tenant that was a Section 8. About 50 years ago, still resonates in my mind. It was hell to get rid of it. I don't think any of you have ever had a Section 8 tenant. It's not all bad, but it's definitely not all good. I started investing in Weaverville 59 years ago. I was 21. And I was fortunate enough to be able to move here 16 years ago. And I do whatever I'm able to do to make Weaverville more interesting and a pleasure for people, just like the old fire station, which was an absolute mess. Today, it's a charm to see people enjoying themselves. And that's what Weaverville's all about. And you've got to be out of your minds, I'm sorry, to even think about allowing this. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Lou. That concludes our general public comment section. We'll run now into the discussion and action items. And our first, sorry, I'll try to remember to speak directly into the mic. That completes our public comment section. We'll move now into the discussion and action items on the agenda. The first item up is the community center usage report. And this is going to be, we're going to hear from our recreation coordinator, Shelby Stovall.
My voice is less than lovely to listen to, so I'm a bit short and sweet. I just wanted to give a quick report. There we go. It's coming back. A quick report of our community center and town hall usage coming from our civic rec site, so our site. Our anniversary of opening did happen earlier this month. So if you look at the spreadsheet shown in your agenda packet, you will see that all of the bolded numbers in blue are our total events that have occurred both in the community center and here at town hall, which is a total of 1,035. It is important to note that that's including not only paid for rentals, but town-sponsored meetings and events, and then our WCCHL free programming. So while not all 1,000 of these were rentals, they still did happen in the building and therefore happen for the community. You will see in green as well our total annual revenue, which is a little over $35,000. And that, of course, would come from our paid rentals. Lastly, I did just take a quick look this afternoon. And to finish out the year from September 7th all the way through December 31st, we will have, so far we have scheduled 194 more events in the community center, and 18 more here in town hall. Of course, that includes town hall, town council meetings and town events. So that is my report.
Excellent.
If anyone has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Shelby?
Yeah, not a question, Shelby, and I wouldn't ask you to answer right now. But maybe, and maybe you already have this, but if you could maybe send some metrics on how the usage has changed over time, by month or so to see, what the trends look like, that would be helpful.
Okay, I can absolutely do that.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Any others? Thank you, Shelby. Hope your voice comes back. And the good news is that the new community center is, has a lot of great programming and is being well used, so.
Yes, definitely a success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley.
Is that what we see, Adam? They came because we have volunteers running the programming, but
It's not a boondoggle, though, right?
it's near a boondoggle.
No, not a boondoggle.
Anyway, the next item is a water allocation request for 171 Monticello Road. And Mr. Jackson?
I have a conflict of interest issue that I need to disclose concerning the LDG water commitment request. My son-in-law is the relative that is working with the owner of the property at 171 Monticello Road that is proposed for the development of LDG. The outcome of a council's decision will have a direct financial impact on my family. So while I'm generally in favor of affordable housing, I don't think it's appropriate for me to vote on this issue and would therefore like to recuse myself from this matter.
Thank you.
Is there any council members who have an objection to Councilman Jackson recusing himself? Seeing no objection, you are recused from this vote, sir.
Mayor, before we go into it, I know we don't like to answer questions. I'd like to answer a few questions from the public comment.
Yes.
They can't hear you.
I know.
Can you reach it?
I don't,
I will say his microphone is one that is not working very well, so he's.
I'll just speak loud because I got a loud voice.
We turned his down on purpose.
So, yeah. So anyways, what I was asking the mayor is, can I answer some of the questions that you folks posed before we dive into it?
Sure.
Thank you. So number one, on the water allocation, an apartment uses on average in the town of Weaverville 70 gallons a day, not 400. So that development will use 11,500 gallons, not 56 gallons. Okay. The town, in town limits, has approved high-density housing against our better judgment across from the sample group near Lake Louise. So that was 11.5 acres with 2.5 acres of floodplain, and it's at a density of usable land at 15 acres, 15 per acre. So we have approved high-density housing inside town limits, not just annexed on the old ETJ. Most of you probably don't know we have low-income housing in Weaverville. It's across the street from me, okay? So I put my money where my mouth is. I got a factory across the street from me that hums all day long. I got this council approving a football-sized Duke Power substation touching my property, 150 feet where I was building a cabin for my son. So you guys don't think we do our homework. We do our homework. And this has nothing to do with how I'm going to vote. You got to understand this job is unforgiving. And we now know it 7 years later and won't be running for re-election. Okay? So it's not hard. I suggest all of you in November run for election if you live in town. Okay? So we do our homework. The problem is you guys don't know it. Okay? So I get it. It's emotional. issue, okay? Nobody wants crime in their backyard. I was robbed 3 months ago. Thank goodness they robbed a council member because I think Chief Davis put the entire staff and they caught the guy and he's in jail, okay? So we get robberies. He didn't come from the apartments across the street. He came from Leicester, okay? So not Leicester, but Leicester. So that's all I can think of now, but I'm sure as we go along, I'll come up with some more answers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate you addressing those concerns. I would also like to say something about the concerns we're hearing about crime. Since I heard from some of from our area residents that they had this concern about crime in this type of facility, I asked our police chief to do some research. So he compared the calls and responses to affordable housing units within the city of Weaverville now compared to other areas. And what they found out was that there's no greater levels of crime or calls to affordable housing areas than there are to non-
In Weaverville.
In Weaverville. So then he also checked with his colleague in Augusta, Georgia, where a similar, or actually an exact kind of project is built there by the same corporation. And what he found there was his colleague in Augusta said that there is no greater level of crime or calls to that apartment complex than there are to any other apartment complexes. So this narrative that working class people are going to commit greater crime is simply false. Now the other concerns, I get you, I hear you, but this thing about crime is simply being exaggerated. So on that, what other discussions do council members have about the water allocation request for the Monticello Road project?
I have some things I'd like to say.
Okay.
And also, like Andrew, I would like to make several little comments here. The original Northridge Commons, and yes, there is somebody who's born and raised here. So the affordable housing that used to be at Northridge Commons had about 100+ mobile homes. So all of you who've lived 50 years in the East Rolling Acres, you should remember that, because I remember that. But I'm going to also say to you, our state of North Carolina, when they took away the ETJ, it was as if they said, Weaverville, you're not supposed to care about your neighbors anymore. I still do very much care about my neighbors. And so to put an R16, 15.73 apartments per acre right next to your R1 homes does not feel comfortable to me. And so I do agree with you there. Our 2020 census, Ms. Young is correct. It says that we only had 5% poverty in Weaverville, and so good for us. We could say good for us. I'm sure that affordable housing is needed in Buncombe County. And I agree that affordable housing is a good thing for people who are looking for that. I think a lot of young people now, when they come to us and say we're looking for affordable housing, they're really looking for something more like what Mountain Housing did at Lily Farms. They want a little house that they can make payments on and call their own. It's not like they're saying, I really want to raise my kids in a project. When I did research on all the towns and cities and unincorporated areas in Buncombe County, I found that Swannanoa has 25% poverty. I so wish that LDG would go to Swannanoa because I really feel like there's a great need there. I have asked Mr. Landon Cox, would he consider putting more one-bedrooms in this facility? Because our 5% poverty that we have is the senior citizens. And if this was a senior citizen complex, I would be voting yes for that, but it is not. I asked Mr. Cox, why wouldn't he consider land that's up here behind the post office and the tractor supply? Because it already has roads and water and sewer. And it is in the town. So the police drive by it every day and the fire department is within a stone's throw. But he said it was too expensive and he couldn't make a profit there. So, yes, this job kind of stinks and we need your prayers every time that we are sitting up here. When I look at the 2020 census and the demographics of Weaverville, It says that our average household size is 2.14. So again, I don't understand why he needs a whole bunch of 3-bedroom apartments there. I need you to understand, we do our homework. We do care. But there are 7 of us that vote. And regardless of whether I believe what you believe, it may not go my way or your way. And so with that being said, the next thing I'm going to say to you is, if your Buncombe County commissioners are the ones who are pushing this and giving $1.5 million to this company that wants to come in here and build these affordable homes, then think really hard about who you're voting for when you vote for your commissioners. Because I'm telling you that Weaverville may not be the main deciding factor here, okay? And maybe I get fired tomorrow.
Well, you can't be fired. We have no recall procedure. You and me both can't be fired.
Councilwoman?
Yes, I have some comments I'd like to make. We've gotten a lot of emails. Am I speaking into this? We've gotten a lot of emails. I want to thank all of you for speaking out, for telling us your thoughts, for letting us know what your concerns are. And I also want to say that the Monticello development addresses a critical need that we have to look for affordable housing. We all know that the housing prices in Buncombe County have skyrocketed in the last few years. Working families, senior citizens, families, people with disabilities don't have a place to live. They're being priced out of their rentals. And projected growth here in Western North Carolina and in Buncombe County is unprecedented. And these concerns that you all have about that are the same concerns I have. They're very real concerns. I do want to say that I've been keeping up with what's going on social media as well as your emails on this project. And there is a lot of speculative and inaccurate information that's being spread on social media about this Monticello housing project. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about some of those, kind of clearing the air as the rumors as Andrew did. The first one I want to just give a little more explanation on is the water. We're told that the projected water usage for this project is 56,600 gallons of water per day for actual usage for the number of complexes they have. We are required by the state, I believe, to use a number to project how much water a complex or an individual house is going to use. That number for apartments is right around 340 gallons per day per unit. What we know is once apartments are built, the actual usage of water is closer to 70 or 75 gallons a day per apartment. So that brings us 56,600 down. My math says 12,600 because I used 75 gallons. Andrew's number was a little bit less than that. So the real number there, once this is built, is that we would be using 12,600 gallons a day of water and not 56,000. So, okay. And in addition, LDG has talked that they, that they are very well aware that water is a concern for us here in Weaverville, and they're doing things, they're planning on doing things that will keep the water usage down, which, like we all have shallow heads with low pressure and such. They're looking at rain barrels, rain collection, and reusing rainwater, and native landscaping, and a few things like that. I want to talk a little bit about crime. And it's interesting to me that this development is getting so very, very much more scrutiny around the crime than any of the other apartment complexes that we've talked about. Okay, LDG, when they bring people in, when they have people rent from them, they do household income checks. They do criminal history checks. They do credit history. They do all the same things that any other apartment complex would do. Not everybody who asks to be in their apartment complex is going to get an apartment to live in.
We don't talk about the other apartment complexes doing that. This is just across the board. Background checks are done, residents are investigated and checked into before you're going to allow them to live in your apartments. There's a worry about violent crime because this is high density. High density does not necessarily mean higher crime. It was referred to earlier in some of the studies that Montgomery County has done, some other things that we have talked about. Not all low-income people are thieves or druggies or criminals, right? I also want to say the population is changing, the needs of the population is changing. You know, I live in a single-family house on a lot that's too big for us. A lot of us do. That was kind of the dream back then. That need is changing. People aren't that interested in single-family large lot homes. There's a lot more single-parent households. There's a lot more single households, senior households, empty nesters, and people are not all interested like we were when we were buying houses for a big house in a big building. So this higher density is something that is appealing to a lot of people, and we need to take that into consideration. I have 3 stories I'd like to tell you from my neighborhood. One is, I have a neighbor who came and spoke to me the other day. Her mother rented at Hawthorne when it was brand new, and I don't know what her rent was, but it has gone up a couple.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Yes. Okay, my neighbor's mother lives at Hawthorne Apartments. She moved in right after they were built. Her rent has increased several times by several $100s, and she just learned last week that there will be another rent increase at her Hawthorne Apartments. She is on Social Security. She gives piano lessons to make a little extra income. She has MS, and she doesn't know where she's going to go because she can't stay there on the income once the rent goes up again for the 3rd, 4th, or 5th time for her. So that's a problem for her. I have another neighbor out on North College in Central who lived in one of those green duplexes. You know, there are those 2 green colored painted duplex buildings there. He was told by his landlord, he's lived there 30 years in that same place. He was told by his landlord he needed to move out and the next door because they're making that an Airbnb. That one of the duplexes is being converted to an Airbnb. The one next to it, those people have until the end of November to move out. He's lived here for 30 years. He couldn't find a place to live in Weaverville, so he's moved out of town, somewhere where he knows nobody. This is where his friends are, his family, his life is here. The other story is a little more personal. In my early divorce years, many, many years ago, I would have welcomed an opportunity to have affordable housing for me and my 2 kids. When I hadn't worked for a while, I had a job that didn't pay me very well. It was what I had a car, I had kids. And sometimes when you have to choose between taking a sick kid to the doctor or paying rent this month or buying groceries this month, those are hard choices to make. And those are not choices that young families need to be making, that single parents need to be making, that seniors need to be making. So I guess in closing, I just want you to know that our job here is to gather information, to do our homework, to make the best decisions that we can that are going to benefit everybody in the town of Weaverville. And that is exactly what we start to do.
I'm confused. I thought that the apartments were were 2 different prices and 2 different scenarios. And that one of the apartments, I didn't know there were 3 bedrooms, they're not given a lot of information. That these are homeless people that are being lived in.
Yeah. No, these are working class people. One third of the apartments would be at a rent that is 30% of the average median income. 1/3 are at 60% of the average median income, and 1/3 are at 80%. What that means is these are housing for working people. But for all the people who are living or working here in Weaverville, all the businesses, they can't afford to live in Weaverville. My colleague here says, well, there's only 5% poverty in Weaverville. That's exactly the point, because the people who are working class people cannot afford to live here. We need to find affordable housing for those folks. The reason that we have such a low poverty rate is because housing in Weaverville is so damn expensive. They can't afford to move here.
Yeah, at the last meeting, you may or may not have been there, but when Mr. Cox presented, he had a PowerPoint presentation, showed the different bands of income and how many apartments would be available. So it's going to be extended, and I think the point was made earlier that not everybody that goes there will want to be there. Not everybody that applies will be accepted. So it's matching people by income levels that want to be there.
So the data is, 1 bedrooms are 24 units, 2 bedrooms are 84 units, and 3 bedrooms are 60 units. And that's a combination of coming up with 168 units in 7 different buildings.
So this is not a Section 8 housing unit, this is not a project. This is not for homeless people. This is for people who work, who have jobs, who have cars. If they just need a place to live that they can afford to, and if they qualify for the HUD 30, 60, 80%, those are the people that will be looked at and considered to move.
Thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple comments too.
Please.
Just to add and to echo what Michelle said, really, really appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten from the community. We've gotten some really thoughtful emails. And, you know, people have a lot of passion around it and they've engaged their brain too, which is pretty good. So a couple, 2 or 3 areas I'd like to just kind of emphasize. On the affordability side, you know, I don't know what the perfect solution or perfect location for the next affordable project in the area is. I do know, I've been told that they did surveys and found that this particular location is almost perfect for a number of areas. I do know, and I think most people know, there is a problem in the region that we all have to work together to address. And again, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat here. This is one of them. I do know also that the developer appears to spend a lot of time with residents and people just addressing questions and issues, which is encouraging because I think they look at it and I look at it like a partnership. You know, since I've been in Weaverville 20 years now, we have a demographic, maybe a lot of you don't know, we are the richest, oldest, most educated group of people in the region, which is great on one sense, but I don't think we want to necessarily stay exactly in that place forever. Maybe we want to mix it up a little bit and get some younger people in that are earlier in their career, that are moving up. And I think this type of project is part of that solution. And, you know, I'd love to see some of the people that are teachers that work in an Ingalls that, hey, for that matter, work on our own town staff here. We actually have very few people on the town staff that live in Weaverville. So we'd love to see that change over time and think this could become part of it. First development, everybody's brought up some very valid concerns about this or any development, traffic. Sidewalks is a big thing to me, getting people that don't choose to get in a car to go where they want to go. We should have that from end to end in Weaverville. But one thing that's important to realize, this project is just a small piece of all the available land up and down Monticello Road and on that side of town. All this is prime development land that is going to get developed some way in the next 1, 5, 10 years. So this is really just the next project. This is not the project. And everybody should recognize that anytime we look at something or the county looks at something, there is an engineering report that gets done for traffic. And these roads are going to get re-engineered. They're going, as projects get added, they get expanded or rerouted. That's just the way of the world. So this is going to be an ongoing thing. Water, several people touched on, we have a plan for water already. We've been working on it all year. Actually, we're working on it all the time, but this year we've worked on identifying the next expansion that doesn't necessarily have to be the Ivy River. And the mayor and the town manager and staff have come up with some really solid solutions. So this is not driving that. We have a plan already. And the last piece I'll mention, and we touched on it a little area. Yeah, this is on county land right now. But you can make a really strong case that this should be part of Weaverville. And for that matter, any new project we look at that uses our water become part of the town, because as Catherine pointed out, we don't have an ETJ, so we don't have an area that we already have our stamp on. So anything that's along our borders, we've got to be engaged with to make sure that it's done right. And the only way you do that, I think, is if it's part of the town rather than the county, because then it's like throwing it over the wall and hope it works out. So those are just kind of my random thoughts there.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that. And I also just want to add that to what you're saying, Councilman, is that we have made an effort in the recent past not to provide water to areas to people who requested who are not willing to annex into town. So I think that just adds to what, it's been our tradition, as well as speaks to what you said. If we get them into town, they develop by our standards, and we can have some conditions set to make the project, make sure that it is a positive one for the town. So, is there any other council members like to make any comments? No. And,
In the future, when we have a big project like this. I know we had a big town council meeting last week, and that was the first time anybody ever heard of this.
You could thank your county commissioners. We've said this before. You didn't have signs on your road. Who voted for Amanda Edwards? I didn't. Vote for who? You got to put your money where your mouth is. It wasn't, the procedures, okay? So the county didn't tell anybody about the $1.5 million. They didn't put signs on your road because they wanted the water approval first. This was not done on the up and up, okay? So, yeah, we have control over it by saying yay or nay on the water on this particular project. But Woodfin's water comes all the way up Gill Branch Valley towards you guys. So as Councilman McKenna said, it's going to get developed, whether you like it or not, unless you change who's on the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners, okay? So we found out about it not much longer before, okay? So get water. Oh, we're going to give them $1.5 million, but we're not going to tell the people that live there. So I'm pissed at my county commissioners, okay? And I vote too. I'm usually in the, short end of the stick, but that's why that happened, Thomas.
Well, I'm just saying, educate us a little bit better.
okay, so as Councilman Nagel said, this is on county land. So what normally happens is when they make an application for a building permit, then the public is notified. But they haven't made that application yet, so that's why there was no signage, as Councilman Nagel refers to.
And the mayor and I don't see eye to eye on everything, but I applaud him we could have voted on this last month, and he wanted to take everybody's opinion. We could have voted on the water last month, okay? So, like I said, I don't always see eye to eye with the mayor, but I appreciate him doing that last month, to give you guys another opportunity, okay?
But we need to have the right
Okay.
information to make the judgment.
Yeah, vote him out of office.
There you go. That's the proper thing. So I appreciate that people have more things they want to say, but we've had a public comment section already, and we had a public information session on this issue last month, so we can't talk about it forever. But thank you for your concern, thank you for your comments, and thank you for all the messages you've sent to us. What action does the council choose to make this evening? So I would make a motion that we approve the water request for the 171 Monticello Road project on the condition that they seek and acquire annexation into the town of Weaverville. Can I get a second on that?
Well, I agree in principle, although that implies, or that would involve conditional zoning.
Yes.
I would want to see, and we've already had dialogue with the developer about sidewalk plan, which is essential, connecting over to Monticello, going down the road. And, areas like that, which I understand they're very flexible on. But what you suggest would bring it into the town versus right now where we would make this vote and then walk away. And I don't like that approach, quite frankly.
So what I'm suggesting is that we would approve on the condition that they seek annexation, which would require conditional zoning. And we could set those conditions, which would be requiring to have sidewalks that would get those residents into the Northridge Commons Shopping Center where they can shop and catch the bus and acquire other services. So the water would not be actually provided until they had acquired annexation into town and met the conditional zoning requirements.
Should we go ahead and come up with all the conditions?
We certainly will have an opportunity to do that. I don't think we want to do it tonight, but we'd have the opportunity to do so.
Mr. Mayor, you might want to point out, we will not get 1 penny of tax revenue from this project because
That's
it's
correct.
a nonprofit. So just to let people know, this is not about getting tax
It's not
dollars.
about taxes.
Yeah,
There are no
that's a
taxes.
good point. That was implied in some of the emails. Are you guys making these decisions for money? There is no money.
There is no money.
This is something that's, if you like to call for the greater good or a larger strategy, but there's no tax revenue involved here.
This will actually cost us money, because if we, regardless of what happens, our police and our fire will have to show up to this facility any and every time. And so the taxpayers in the town of Weaverville will have to probably have a tax increase to pay for our fire and our police. You know, after sitting on this for not even a year, it has become very obvious to me that there are tax increases in our future, and there will continue to be tax increases in our future to pay for the needs and services, especially when you add units that pay no taxes.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily share that opinion for a couple of reasons, and I respect it, but as what we're talking about here is growth along our borders potentially, selectively. And this is one example of it, and as we do that, there will be other areas that are normal with tax revenue that offset that. But she is right that today, no matter what, we have an obligation to support developments right along our border. Forget what the term is.
Mutual aid.
It's mutual aid. That's not new. That's ongoing. And our town staff does a great job of balancing that and figuring it out and doing it with no tax increases, which we've been pretty darn good at for the last number of years. So I'm optimistic that that will continue.
Anything else? There's a motion on the floor. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do, in anticipation that this was one option that you might consider tonight, I do have a resolution prepared that would do a couple of things. One, it would do as you suggested and approve or grant the water request conditioned upon the annexation into the town of Weaverville. As you might remember, there's a good bit of process with regard to annexation. And in order to kind of push them on their way a little quicker than we normally do, the resolution would go ahead and direct the town clerk to investigate the sufficiency of a voluntary annexation petition should it come into you, and then report back as soon as practical after he's able to do that. And also, in anticipation, under this circumstance, that this would be a conditional district zoning request. The first step in that process is always to come to this body for initial consideration. And that's usually just just a look at the concept plan that you have before you already, and note any things that you would like to see the developer do, such as the pedestrian connectivity. And so what this could do, this resolution, should you wish to entertain it, would say that you have already, your review of the concept plan would be sufficient as an initial consideration, so that when the application comes in, it can go directly to the planning board and not come back to you first. In the event that it's helpful to you, I can share a resolution with you.
Thank you.
So I don't have a question. I just have a statement. Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we annex them with conditional zoning, do they get water as part of the annexation?
They certainly are now an in-town.
No, forget them. If somebody asks to be annexed R12, R1 conditional zoning. Once they're annexed into town, now that they're in town, do they get water?
Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So why are we saying, so I've worked on an analogy of this for a week, and I love analogies for those of you who don't know me. I got no analogy for this. So we're gonna vote on, the mayor's got on the floor, a motion. If you annex, we'll give you water. Yeah, no kidding. Sorry, Mayor, I can't get my head around it. So this motion in my mind is worthless. If they submit a conditional zoning application, then we can talk about it. And then if we approve it, they get water, right? Because you looked at me like I was stupid. You were like, yeah, duh.
So.
This speeds it up, this speeds it up by.
Well, it does a couple things. One is it would have to come back for your approval on the water. You still have to approve that water request. And so the way the mayor is proposing it is you go ahead and approve that water request, subject to coming back before you for the annexation.
Yeah, I also think, and correct me, or some of the people in the audience that email us, they want to know tonight, how do you guys stand on this?
Yes.
Where's this heading? And I think we owe it to everyone to say, this is where we as a group feel this is heading. Now we just have to get into the logistics of it. So what you suggested would do that. It wouldn't leave any.
Right. And I would like to say to Andrew, I understand the point you're making, but the end result of either route gets you to the same place. So I don't understand the objection or the difference you're creating. So, but as you said, Andrew, we appreciate each other, but we don't necessarily see things the same way.
Well said.
So is there any other comments or discussion on this item? Or any questions? Okay, so the motion is to approve water for the project on the condition that they get annexed into town. And of course, that would require them to have conditional zoning, which means we could set the conditions to provide the connectivity for this project to Northridge Commons as well. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose, say no.
No.
Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item C, the town hall roof replacement. And I'm going to call on Manager Coffey to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the last couple of years, town staff has been using buckets in several places. And if you go, especially if you go into offices, restrooms, down the hallway, even in the main office over there, we've had quite a bit of problem with leaking roof over the years. We've tried patching. We've had a number of companies come in and do patchwork. And the bottom line is that we're sitting under the roof that was originally built on this building. So just recently, we went out and got a couple of quotes to go ahead and not just make minor, small repairs here and there, but go ahead and replace the roof with better materials and that will last us longer and obviously maintain the structure that we all use and enjoy. We did get 2 quotes. One of them came back at $70,000 for interestingly enough, about a 15-minute visit. The second quote came back with at $48,350 for a gentleman who's been about an hour truly looking at everything that needed to be done. Same materials, again, the same level, same materials, same level of work. But also, it was important to us because we've heard you when you've talked about the potential of solar on our roofs in the future. And so we did ensure that the quotes that we received were capable. I won't say that they're upfit, so to speak, but it is capable of housing solar panels in the future. So I did not anticipate that we would have both quotes in time for me to make a recommendation to you. But because we do have these both quotes and they're the same material and give the same life, longevity for the roof, I would like to recommend that you approve, and I believe we have a budget amendment that should be popping up here momentarily.
What's the square footage on the roof, just out of curiosity's sake? Do you know, ballpark?
We would have to get a.
Don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it. Not if you knew it off the top of your head.
Right off the top of my head.
That's all right. No worries.
Okay. So we have a budget amendment. Again, I wasn't expecting that we would have both of these quotes in time, but since we did, we wanted to add this budget amendment, and I'm recommending that you approve the budget amendment for the $48,350. And you'll see there the 3 units, we split that up between your budget, administration budget, and the police department budget. And that's just the way that we allocate it. And if you want it all in your budget, we're happy to do it.
Right.
But that's the way that we split the costs out. And then if you'll scroll just a little bit lower, James, what I'm recommending here is that we appropriate fund balance for this year. So that's the recommendation. Happy to try to answer questions. We've got the quotes. I'm sure we could find the square footage.
It's fine, it's fine. I was just, because I just re-roofed it, I was gonna do a quick math in my head.
Yeah.
Did he give you a time frame, like it could start in 90 days or?
Did he tell you?
We're going into winter here.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to have any concerns about that.
It sounds like a good price,
Yeah,
but Lou would know. Is that a good price, Lou?
it is. We just did our house and it was one of these.
It sounds good.
And the other thing I'll tell you is that, and we have been able to budget this over the years, but the other thing that a lot of times you all don't see these kinds of details, but the air conditioning units, I know that you all accuse me of freezing this room out, but the air conditioning units, we are replacing them as we can. In other words, we've developed a plan where the oldest ones that have not been repaired or replaced or given us problems the most, we're replacing those as we go along too. And 6 of them, seven units on the roof. So there's quite a bit.
And if you didn't use them so strenuously, they would last longer.
So I have a question. Do you have areas in the building that just doesn't conform to what your temperature should be?
We absolutely do.
Have you thought about or looked at ductless air conditioning or heat pumps?
No. But I have not thought about that, but that is something that we could look into. Dale, do you have any experience with?
No.
Does that mean window units?
No.
It's like a window unit. But it's not.
Oh, yeah, those things.
Okay, so
spot.
So it would require that we would have to be working ductwork
It doesn't have any
Talk
ductwork.
later.
at all.
We've got them at work. You can come by and visit and see some of
They
them.
actually
See
look
all
pretty
this in
good.
doctor's offices where they have a patient's room that for some reason with the system, it's too cold, too hot, and they never can get it with overall air conditioning. So you put in one of these elements. They're
mini splits.
I have three at my house.
Damn, you got a big
Everyone's a
house.
separate zone.
Okay.
There's one in that conference room.
The 2 rooms that come to mind that I see us having problems with is in this small room right outside the door here, and then in the small conference room where you all meet occasionally. Those are the 2 rooms that we generally have problems with regard to, trying to keep the temperature at a level.
But anyway, the recommendation to us is that we approve this budget amendment to pay for the roof replacement.
I make a motion, we approve it.
Thank you.
I second it.
Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no.
Thank you.
So done. Next item is item D, proposed sidewalk priority list. And James Eller, our planning director, will tell us about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The current goals of the comprehensive land use plan
call for the establishment of a sidewalk authority list. The purpose of this is in part to provide for development approvals for them to install sidewalks at the property owner's expense rather than the town. I think it's important for everybody to know that this does not obligate the town to install any sidewalks. The proposed sidewalk priority list included in the attached staff report. If adopted, this priority list could provide for a good starting point for sidewalk improvement program and master plan as well, which are also goals of the comprehensive land use plan. At their September meeting of the planning board, they did review this same information and will be offering a unanimous recommendation to town council regarding the list that's been created. On another note, separate action taken by council tonight. There were a couple of other items that were included with the adoption of the comprehensive land use plan. This could be included with those items as well under the general umbrella of one public hearing. And planning board has also made a recommendation that this sidewalk list, if and when it's adopted, is put in the comprehensive land use plan and will therefore be reviewed annually. Happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
We'll put them in front of my house.
Excuse me?
Can I make a comment that this table as it exists is not the priority list? This is just a list of possible sidewalks that could happen in the town, and then later they would be prioritized based on need or.
Correct me if I'm wrong, James, but I think that this is a list of sidewalks that you would like, areas that you would like to see sidewalks in. It's not necessarily prioritized as numbered as to which is the most important, but this serves as a list, just as a reminder to you and the folks that are in the audience. The importance of this list is it gives developers information to know whether they're going to have to put in any sidewalks as a part of their subdivision development. So without this list, with any list of areas where town council thinks sidewalks are important, developers are not going to be required to install any sidewalks. And so this is sort of that stopgap measure to say these areas we would like sidewalks in, so developers in those areas are going to be required so that ultimately they can get connected into the pedestrian network.
This was requested when you and I were there together by you guys, that we give some guidance to, the planning board versus just going, we want sidewalks everywhere. So.
This is not a sidewalk improvement plan, much like the street improvement plan where town council is going to put a certain amount of budget towards the installation of sidewalks. That would be a next step should town council wish to do that. At which point I do think it would be important for you to say, what is the most important sidewalk?
Right, because that's what we're going to review next month with them, the update on that. Right?
There's
and
a lot of coordination with.
So would that go back and update this table potentially?
Theoretically, if there are any inconsistencies between the sidewalk priority list and a sidewalk improvement plan, we would need to resolve.
Okay, because I was getting a little confused on it too, so that
So
clarifies.
one of the things, Jeff, that came up at the planning and zoning is, this is sidewalks in town. Most of what's on the bike ped plan has to do with sidewalks beside of NCDOT roads. And so they kind of have two different purposes.
Councilmember Cordell, you were involved in these conversations on the steering committee as well as the planning board, so please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. It's my belief and understanding that the sidewalk pedestrian plan will suggest 10 catalyst projects. Of those 7 were along NCDOT roads. 1 was along the town road, 1 was on town property, and 1 was on the private road. There's an effort that's been made here to concentrate much more closely on town-owned and maintained roads.
And I believe there's just one overlapping street, and that's Yo's.
But you just have to live on, Jeff.
I like to overlap. That's my thing.
So the action, the action requested here is that we add this list to the comprehensive land use plan update public hearing on October 24th.
That's great.
Okay? Everyone agreeable to this? Done so. Last, we're going to hear from our Public Works Director on the Public Works and Water Department quarterly reports.
Good evening. I'm going to present to you our works activity reports for the months from June through August. You have that beginning in your agenda package on page 62. And as usual, I'll take you through some of the more outstanding numbers and activities that we've had during the past 3 months. On page 62, under August 22, the third item down is total active water meters. We're now over 3,200 active water meters in our system, and that's, as you can see from the June 22 number, we've increased by about 37 meters in just 3 months. Those represent new customers. If you go down a few more lines, we had 162 water line locate and utility service calls. That's the 811 call when we did. 162 calls in a month divided by 20 working days is about 8 calls every day that we have to locate our water lines, or 1 an hour. That's starting to take a lot of time, which shows, and that's an increase in 32 calls from the previous month, which means that sooner or later, if the housing market slows down, it'll help our workload a little bit. If we care to go there. On page 63, the question was asked earlier tonight about how much water are we using right now. And one of the best ways to judge that is how much water are we pumping out of either area. And if you look under the second item down under the 3-month average there, on an average basis over the 3-month period, we're pumping 50% of the water that we're allowed to pump, which means that we have water and we have capacity to pump more water. That 50% represents about 22 million gallons of water a month. So I just wanted to bring that number to your attention. And one reason that number is important is the very last number in that column is our monthly unaccounted for water.
My favorite number.
Yeah.
Which is getting lower.
Ghost water.
As I mentioned to you in months past, any place in the country, if you're below 10%, you're considered to be a fairly tight system. And we have an average of 7.5% for the previous 3 months.
Great job.
That's pretty tight.
That means that number one, we're accounting for all our water as we can, and it means that the radio read program that we put in for all the water meters in town is giving us very accurate readings on the water that actually is being used in town. If you look at page 64, under the streets department, and again, right below that under our ground maintenance division, that hurts. We got a total there, we did 11 projects in August, special projects, and a lot of those are down at Lake Louise. Crosswalks, changing out signs, and other things around town. So I hope you've noticed the changes there that we've been making. And on the last page, page 65, I want to go over a few miscellaneous things. The town manager mentioned that we've received the 1,600 toters that we're going to be distributing over the next 3 months to the people in town that are without those. but we're still seeing people buying them, leading up to that, at 43 that were sold in the past quarter. And so we've got about 607 folks that have bought green toters over the years. And so that's 600 plus the 1,600, which was the same 2,200, which was the number of recycling containers that we bought and distributed last year. Another item is I've completed the pavement condition survey for all the streets in town. And so we're putting together a program now for bidding in the fall, probably to be on the first list of paving that a contractor will do in the spring to do the streets that we can pay for it with our current budget. So we'll be bringing that to you for some review. The heating system for the restrooms at Lake Louise, we got a price on that, which was less than we thought it was going to be, and that's going to be installed before cold weather.
So the bathrooms can stay open
year round.
Year round.
We don't have to pay for.
Thank you.
Porta potties.
Thank you.
And that'll be installed for freezing weather conditions. And of course, you've already heard about the fountain being repaired, and we're going to add a second fountain, a smaller one up towards the fishing docks. So we've always got a backup in addition to the backup pump that's going to be sitting on the shelf.
Is that gonna bring in more trout up there?
We've had 3 deliveries of catfish in the last month and a half.
Nice.
So I think we're finished with that for the year, but we should have our first trout stocking usually in late December. So when that happens, that's gives the water a chance to do it, and the oxygen keeps them alive. We did our annual sludge removal project at the water treatment plant with just over 100 tons of sludge removed, and that's done for another year. There's just a couple other quick things that I don't have listed here. One is, I mentioned to you before about the big problems we were having with geese at the lake. And, we're having an issue with that constantly. We found a product called avian migrate. And it's a food-grade, non-toxic product that makes the grass taste bad to the Canadian geese. 2 applications for that on all the grass around the picnic pavilions and the playgrounds.
Just so you know, I'm always afraid of what he's getting ready to say.
Yeah. Tell you.
I'm happy to report that aliens have migrated. They may be coffeefields, but
they're not at Lake Louise.
not at Lake Louise.
That's all that matters.
They'll show up and take a few bites, and then they leave. So,
Bad ground.
I'm happy about that. And the last thing I'll mention, and this is something I just found out. Town manager mentioned the DOT project of doing the road work on 26, basically from Weaver Boulevard to New Stock Road, about 7/10 of a mile there, including the bridges over Ring Street. That's going to, it's being bid in September, be awarded so that the contractor technically can start at the end of October. And the final completion date is February 2027. So we'll be enjoying that, but they committed to us that they always have 2 lanes of interstate open in both directions throughout construction. So we'll look forward to cooperating with them and working with them on those things. Anything else I can answer?
Dale, did you mention the rec center, the phase 2 community center schedule? Can you comment on schedule?
I'm talking with the landscape architect who participated in the work on the community center. He did, in doing the work on the community center, he did a little bit of advanced work, particularly in terms of the storm drainage system that was installed at the community center that would reflect future work on the phase 2. So I'm talking to him and we'll get him to help us in trying to get that off the ground and permitted and ready.
Okay. Great.
I did want to thank you, and maybe this has been on there before, and I just noticed it on your water commitment, page 66, your furthest right-hand column where you're setting the records. You might have gotten a little too conservative, but I like that number better. Thank you for putting that in there. And then I don't always have to do the math in my head, so appreciate that.
And we looked at the usage of our largest 3 apartment complexes in the last 6 months.
And that's down to about 50.
Arrived at that number.
Thank you.
So that sort of goes back to the questions you raised in the past to help us look at reality instead of requirement.
I greatly appreciate that.
I have one question for Dale or Ms. Coffey. So this time, we see note 5, projections do not include any future flow to the town of Monticello, which we had originally put in 200,000 gallons daily. I know there was not a written agreement and that we was not charging them anything to save that for the emergency fund, for their emergency possibility. Have we at least called them and told them we've taken these numbers out of our plan?
We've been having conversations with Marcel as a part of the resolution that you all passed for the items for us to be working on. And we have, Dale actually last week, right, met with Nathan Bennett, who's the manager, and they had that discussion. They also frankly had the discussion about the interchange between the flow, between the mutual flow, I'll call it, I think that's the technical water term, but the potential for mutual emergency water between the two.
Reciprocating.
There you go. And so that we are and continue to have those conversations. We will need to enter into another agreement, and Jennifer actually has that on her list for drafting an agreement that would address that, both for Mars Hill to consider as well as town council to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Mr. Pennell?
Is the basin project being, the recoating of the basin scheduled? Do we know what month yet?
No. It's not scheduled.
But that is included in the resiliency grant proposals, is it not? That's just the generous? Never mind.
That's something that just needs to be done.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Pennell? Thank you, Dale, but I just gotta say, Dale, you fix the fountain, you get a second fountain, and you're getting trout. You're gonna be one of those popular men in town.
That's it. That's all you need to do.
Huh?
Yeah. Some avian grass.
Is there any other matters that need to come before this body this evening? Yes?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we moved the report of the settlement of judicial action and budget amendment from consent agenda down to discussion.
Thank you.
So, just wanted to town council has in closed session, in previous meetings, taken action to approve a $70,000 settlement of the McKinney versus Town of Weaverville, matter, with the Town of Weaverville agreeing to pay $20,000 and the North Carolina League of Municipalities paying $50,000. Of course, the settlement is of a disputed claim and is not intended to be an admission of liability, but rather a compromise in order to avoid the expense of litigation and to terminate all other controversies associated with this matter. Again, under North Carolina law, you're required to report a settlement in open session. And that's what we're here to do today. But we also do need the budget amendment to move that money for that settlement.
Okay. Andrew, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, so I don't know legally what you're allowed to say now that it's done and we're out of.
I'm a little bit worried about that too.
Yeah.
So what question do you have? We can always go into closed session.
I don't want to go to closed session.
Okay.
I don't know that. You weren't there.
I'm not going to closed session ever again.
Okay.
So legally, I'm not a lawyer, you're a lawyer. What can we bring up everything from day one? I mean, what can we talk about legally now? It's public record. I think Selena mentioned something at one point. Once somebody's fired, is there personnel file still hidden in dark cloak?
So the personnel file is always confidential.
Okay.
So we can't talk about the confidential personnel file. What you can talk about is the public filings that have been made, the plaintiff's complaint, the defendants, our answers to that. To the extent that there are filings within the lawsuit, those are public.
So his request for things would now be public.
His request.
All right,
for settlement
so
or-
part of the settlement is, he wanted us to rehire him. That was a request of his.
Yes. He wanted reinstatement. He sought
Right, and
reinstatement.
so in our settlement with him, what we said, no, we're not rehiring you.
That reinstatement was not part of the
Was
settlement.
not part of, okay. So I'm just being careful because I know some of it. I don't know all, because as Ms. Cordell pointed out, I wasn't there. So, yeah, I mean, I could sit here and guess, and I'm just going, what can you legally tell me in the out here in the public of what happened? Things like that, like we didn't accept his demand to be rehired. So I don't know if there's anything else. That was my biggest question.
So no, he was not reinstated.
Okay. All right, so, all right.
Of the settlement amount, again, the town authorized 20,000.
Yeah, right, and our insurance basically through the league picked up the rest. Are we allowed to say what he wanted?
I believe that was in the claim.
Yeah, you can.
How much did he want?
Oh, I don't have that.
You know, I'm close, give me a ballpark. A lot, right?
A lot, yes.
Well, I want it on the public record. That's why I'm saying this. We got the news here. You know, he wanted a lot of money. We always get me to be out to be the bad guy, and I'm tired of it. I got a year left. I'm gonna channel my inner Doug Dirth for the next year. Okay?
Is that a thing?
Yes, it's a compliment.
You got a shirt
It's a
for him?
compliment. Since he's looking me down. We always get made out to be the bad guy, and I am tired of it. Okay, so he asked for a lot of money, which I thought was unreasonable.
He's looking at it.
So maybe the people in the audience will go, "Damn, you should have given him that to him. You guys are tightwads." But whatever we're allowed to talk about.
But more than likely, they're not going to say that.
Well, that's why if I got a fish, then I may say something accidentally I wasn't supposed to.
He did request $155,000.
Right. And according to the previous chief, we didn't pay a living wage, so that's like 7 years worth of salary is what he was asking for. According, so he asked, and I know that I'm exaggerating. So he probably made, based on our lowest paid fireman, he wanted 3 years of pay or something like that. But anyways, okay, so he asked for 150, we settled for 70.
55, we settled for 70.
Less than half. Good job, team. Thank you. Enough.
Okay, so we've already approved this previously, but we need to pass a budget amendment for that 20,000. Do you have a motion to do so?
I make a motion to do so.
Do I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Is there anything else important that needs to come before this body this evening? Seeing none, we're adjourned.
Closed session.
Yay.
Hot damn.